Hello there, welcome back to Money Coach UK, where it is in fact my ambition to try and make sense of everyday personal finance challenges that we encounter in order to help us, you and I, save money and manage our finances better. Today I wanted to talk to you about the total costs of buying and owning a new car. Well, new to you or me anyway, i.e. total cost of ownership, in order to help make smarter buying decisions and also to budget for ongoing expenses. This is a slightly longer blog than normal, as there are quite a few elements, as you might expect, to car ownership. So I'm going to also expand a little on the role of depreciation and all of that entails in buying and owning your own car. I've also put together a small calculator, which hopefully we'll have slots of up here, to help you manage the aspects of ownership and see how you want to spend your money when buying the car and balancing it all out. These elements will, as I alluded to, include depreciation, annual mileage, car tax, service, warranty, repairs, tyres, fuel costs and MOTs. These tend to be the main costs that we're thinking about when buying a car, but also managing a car on a day-to-day basis. So let's consider these one at a time. So, if we're thinking about how much your pride and joy is likely to cost on a monthly ongoing basis, that's kind of where we want to head off. And to keep the sort of maths as straightforward as possible, what I've done is think about a fictional car with a purchase price of £20,000 for which you're going to put down a £10,000 deposit, perhaps from the value of your current car that you're choosing to change. It could be a new car to you or a second-hand car. Either way, you've identified a shiny car in the showroom that you want. As a general rule of thumb, cars tend to depreciate by half their value, i.e. 50%, over a 3-year period. But we want to be more precise than that if possible, and have a look at the level of depreciation on our car at 3 years. So within the calculator that I'm showing, I'm using a 50% figure as a depreciation number, but you take a look at what happens if you put 45% in the figure at year 3 or 55% into that figure for year 3. Because when you do that, you can see for a 20k car, this is obviously a £2,000 difference, and that's a value that you would have to fund. So clearly you can put any number that you want to in terms of the value of your car in here, but it's entirely up to you to think about it. But if it was £2,000, that difference, then you're talking about an extra £55 a month that you're paying just to fund that depreciation over the 3-year period. So have a play with the calculator and see what you notice when you put your numbers in. That makes sense. In order therefore to do that, you just need the list price of your car and the 3-year depreciation percentage, which can be found in some of the online magazines like What Car. Residual valuation guides are often shown here in that magazine, but in many others. You may be surprised by some cars that actually have lost 75% of their value in 3 years. 75%. So perhaps a 3-year-old car in that state would be a bargain. Something else to think about when buying a car. So there should be a link which we'll publish for you to take you down that road, and you can have a little look at just an example of where those numbers came from. But now you may have a little bit of a better knowledge of the depreciation that's likely to be linked with the car that you're aspiring to own, and you'll be better armed to consider the most cost-effective route for yourself. So, having thought about that, as we continue on the journey of total ownership, we now need to consider the annual mileage, i.e. that you're likely to drive over 1 year, and in my case with this calculator I'm suggesting 12,000 miles a year, which is an approximate average for the use in the UK. Again, insert your own figure and see what this does to your petrol costs or diesel costs. Bear in mind that if you do have a high mileage, then clearly that's going to have a big impact both on your petrol costs, but also the depreciation that you're likely to incur on the car will be significantly higher. So the loan cost per month is likely to go up. Next, we just need to think about the level of car tax. Now, obviously, that's going to be determined by a number of factors in itself, but largely levered by the CO2 levels. Although that's obviously changing a little bit now as people are having a little bit closer look at that. And also it's becoming influenced again by the value of your car. In this calculator, you'll see that there are three options when thinking about that second-hand car you're after. If you're buying a new car, then there is a higher vehicle excise tax for that first year, in year one, which is worth remembering, especially if it's a private purchase. That first year tax piece being significantly higher is usually added in or is part of the negotiation that you may have with the dealer in buying that car, but be aware of those numbers because they're quite chunky. So find your CO2 level for your prospective car and pick one of those three options. Option 1 is for any car registered after April 2017. Option 2 is for cars registered between April the 1st, 2001 and March 2017. And option 3 is for premium cars, those whose new list price is greater than £40,000. So here it is certainly worth noting that zero emissions cars incur no charge, but for cars that incur, no charge for anything less than 40,000. But if the value is higher than 40,000, then even they incur a £320 vehicle excise duty. So it's better to get a cheaper car. Everybody's trying to encourage us into that sort of greener car. Anything higher than that for a post £40,000 car post 2017 will cost you £460 in tax. So a little bit of a melee to work through, but then you need to just think about how much you're going to spend on servicing in a year. Again, you'll see that I've just put in a little calculator here to give you an opportunity to evaluate that. And in some of the servicing, in some of the leases that you can buy, you can include servicing, especially if you're looking at certain PCPs, because they offer that as part of the package, sometimes clearly at a cost. But it is worth looking out and doing the maths to see whether or not it's actually worth including that in your overall monthly payment for the car that you're leasing, if you're going down that road. But if you're not including a servicing in your package, then you do need to, obviously, in terms of general month-on-month management, need to assign a sum that you think might incur with this car. In my example, I've chosen a notional £300 per month for the year, but you put in whatever you think is likely to happen, and most people have some degree of idea about what the car they're looking at is likely to cost them in servicing, and obviously a conversation with the dealer will give you an idea. This does lead us nicely onto the thorny subject of warranties, because if you're going to buy a car from your garage, will typically give you a warranty depending on what kind of package they're offering, but that could be anything from 3, 6, 12 months, or if it's a new car, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes even longer. If it's a second-hand car, then typical average might be 3 to 6 months, if you're lucky 12 months. So but that's worth thinking about and factoring in, because clearly that would incline you to believe that you shouldn't incur any maintenance repair costs over that first 12-month period while the guarantee is in view. But after that point, once things gone out of warranty, then it's another cost that you may need to factor in. The only issue, of course, with this is now really like nailing to the ceiling, because trying to figuratively judge what you're likely to have is pretty hit and miss. Some cars go on forever without having a problem, and sometimes they have problem after problem after problem, and we hear about all those various nightmare stories from our friends from time to time, and we've all been there at one point or another. But in order to give some kind of guide, I thought it would be in some way helpful, because it would at least facilitate a conversation with yourself about, okay, I've got to think about this and budget something aside just in case something's going wrong, if I really want to consider the total cost of ownership of my car. So in the end, I decided just to make a judgment call on a percentage of the new car list price. It seemed to be the easiest way, and based upon an increasing percentage going forward. So in the first year, of a new car, it's going to be under warranty. You're not going to incur anything, so you would have 0% expectation of any kind of cost. But in year 2, you might expect a 2% of the value cost. In year 3, 4%. In year 4, 6%, and so on. It is merely a guide. It is just an idea of helping you think through what that might be. It is in no way based on anything other than my guesstimate, and you could put in your own numbers there if you wish, but at least it would give you some kind of idea. And basically what we're suggesting is if you've got a £50,000 car or a £20,000 car, in year 5 you might end up with a £2,000 expense. If you're not covered by warranty, that becomes a significant expense. For example, a gearbox going, that might be something significant. So when thinking about do I or do I not extend warranties, this becomes a very significant factor in thinking about it. Should I bother extending warranty? And if you've got a relatively expensive car or it's got lots of technical pieces associated with it, 4-wheel drives and what have you, when those gearboxes tend to go, they tend to go with a bang. So it's worth thinking about. So, a lot of these extended warranties, as you may well know, are available up to 100,000 miles. Well, that's quite a long coverage, and it is definitely worth thinking about once you've looked at this maths and thought about it. So, going forward from that piece, where does that take you? Hopefully the calculator is now building up a picture of what your total cost is likely to be, and therefore the premiums that you're likely to be offered. It could be grossly underestimating, it could be grossly overestimating, but at least it gives you something to think about. Okay, hopefully that overall costs is just about covered. Then the only other things to think about then are tyres. So again, the calculator's geared just to think about what's my normal cost for a standard replacement tyre on this car, and how many miles is my expectation for them to last. And of course the manufacturers will give you their guide, you'll have your own experience, and think about the number of driving miles that you do, and pop those numbers into the calculator and see what comes out for you. Essentially, if you're driving 10,000 miles a year or 12,000 miles a year and your tyres are going to be doing 24,000 miles a year, it doesn't take a genius to say that, okay, I'm expecting to get through half of my tyres in a year, and therefore I should be spreading my cost across 2 years for a set of 4 tyres. So what does that cost? Okay. So having thought that through, the last element, as I say, is likely to be petrol or diesel, depending on where you're going with your car. If you're going into the electric world, then clearly the costs are far different and somewhat less, depending on whether you're going on hybrids or full electric. But this is just an opportunity to think again about what that's likely to be and where you're going to pay for it. Obviously, the higher the mileage that you're doing in a year, the higher the cost of petrol, and again, depending on whether this is a company car or if it's a personal car to you, as to how that mile per gallon piece is going to impact you. But the calculator, again, hopefully gives you an opportunity just to pop the numbers in and see, okay, how much is that going to be every year? And you can balance that back with your own personal finances elsewhere. Why is this helpful? Well, hopefully, when buying a car, it's all very well seeing those impressive numbers in the showroom and you see this low CO2 figure. What we're trying to do here is to translate the whole thing into a manageable lump that just says, okay, think about these 5 or 6 key elements. How much is that likely to cost me when I put that all together? And I can see that some things for this car that are offering me a low CO2 and a low mileage, or I'm a high mileage driver and I need to be doing 25,000 miles a year. That's going to have a big impact on the depreciation of the car, so I should be thinking about the overall package of that loan, and have to mitigate rather a lot higher monthly payment on my loan. So where else can I save money? So if I've got a car that's doing far less miles per month in terms of petrol consumption, that might help me. Okay, hopefully that's been helpful. Look out for my blog on the differences between PCPs and hire purchase, and another way of looking at it is how to use someone else's cash to buy your car, and also the difference between APR and flat rates, which I've also done a little bit of a blog on. Hopefully that also will be helpful when thinking about taking out a loan. So I hope you found this useful and helpful, and if you want to find any more pieces and tips and thoughts on this, then please do head on over, come and find me at moneycoachuk.co.uk, or on Twitter.